Today on Rock and Blues Review, we welcome Jack de Keyzer with too many awards to talk about and too many accolades from peers and a stellar career across Canada. No stranger to Niagara. Welcome to the show, Jack.
Thank you, Bob. Nice to see you.
Yeah, it's been a while, probably last year. This year's gone so fast, I can't believe it. So let's just talk about, you've got a show coming up at the Roselawn Center in Port Colborne on November 14th, and you've done a bunch of these soft cedar shows according to your schedule. How did that come about?
I think I had a saxophone player named Chris Murphy who was in the band for about 5 years, and he suggested that we start playing theaters and it'll be a good venue for us. And yeah, so I think it started probably about 10 years ago that we started playing in doing more theater type of rooms. They always have a great sound, great sight lines, comfortable, people can have a drink before and after, and they're always usually in nice buildings. So yeah, I think, especially the blues crowd is a little bit older. So I think they enjoy, a kind of, they don't want to go to bars as much as they used to, I don't think, in the late nights.
Yeah, that's true. And this is a nice theater. Have you played this one before?
Yeah, this will be our fourth time, I think, third or fourth. Yeah.
Have you been doing them in the winter?
That one we generally do in November. Yep.
Yeah, this is a nice theater, and it does have nice sound. And but that's a question. When you play shows, I mean, people get up and dance. So this is different. For me, it's better because I like to sit and listen. I'm no dancer.
Yeah, I mean, we still do some dance. We play bigger halls and we'll do dance halls, which is fun too. But I kind of prefer the theater setting because then I find with the dance thing, I always feel obliged to keep people on the dance floor because I can't stand having a big empty space in front of the band. Drives me crazy. And so I just try to keep it like danceable all night. But when you're in a theater, you can play something super fast. You can bring it really slow it down. You can program the show exactly how you want it to go. And, and the other thing too is you get to do more original material because, at a dance, half of my set is original that people can dance to, but the other half we're throwing popular covers to keep people on the dance floor. So that's another reason I really like the theaters.
Yeah, well, like you say, you do a good job of keeping them up there. Personally, I prefer to sit and listen, but it works out for me. Maybe not everybody else, but like you said, this is a nice theater, and it is going to be a good listening experience for people. For those who haven't been there before.
Yeah, I talk to a lot of people, and I find like half the people seem to be like you, and sometimes when we did play dances, I felt like, well, this is a bit of a ripoff. These, 50 people or however many people on the dance floor are blocking the view for the other, 100 or 200, 300 people that are sitting there who just wanted to listen and watch. But there's a lot of people like you that, they just want to just sit down and listen and enjoy the show.
It's more like a concert experience, when you go to a big show and the arenas are big theaters, that's what you're expecting. So that's kind of the way I approach it, which I understand is not typical. I'm not normal.
I think, yeah.
You mentioned that Chris Murphy suggested this. And so are you actually booking the halls and producing these shows as you go?
Kind of half and half. Half my shows, I'll promote some. I get outside promoters sometimes. I get agents to do it. It varies.
Yeah. So I remember the first time you came to the Canal Bank, and that was 2002. I remember at the time it was a big deal because you had not been in Niagara that often, and now you are very well known. That certainly has changed. And how do you maintain all these connections? Because I'm sure there are lots of communities like that where, you come around, and how do you maintain so many community connections throughout Canada?
Well, one of the things I do is keep doing it. I've been doing it. I started my band in Toronto in 1985, and I'd been in bands for a good, let me think. Well, I started playing professionally in 72. So yeah, I'd already had 12, 13 years under my belt of being a kind of a sideman for different people like King Biscuit Boy and Ronnie Hawkins. And then I was in a band called the Bobcats, and I worked with a rockabilly singer named Robert Gordon. And then when I started my band in 85, so that's pretty well all I've been doing since. So it's been, that is coming up to like how many years now? 50 years. I've been leading my own band. And, is that right? 50? Am I doing the math right?
Yeah, that's got to be about right. Yep. I know.
Like a lot.
I know.
Anyway, and another thing that we do, Bob, is that we'll play a show, and if it goes well, we'll go back there the next year and do it around the same time frame. You know, like the way you guys run festivals, you don't change your date every year. And people go, "Oh, that was a fun weekend or a fun night. Let's go back." So that's basically what I do. If a gig goes well, I'll try to book it around the same time frame the next week. And the other thing too, I think, is that a lot of when I started out, we played mostly big cities. You know, we'd play Hamilton, Toronto, Ottawa, London, blah blah, and then gradually, as the crowds, you know, our age group started moving out to suburbia or to smaller towns or different areas. A lot of my gigs now are in smaller communities, so there's that too.
A lot of people don't know your history. You mentioned a couple of the guys that you've played with, and you've also got Etta James and Otis Rush on your list. And how do those come about?
There was a period when when I started my band in 85, or actually it was just slightly before that. I was still kind of doing more freelance stuff, but I rarely left Toronto. And there was a great club in Toronto called the Alberts Hall. And Buddy Guy played there. I mean, so many big names played there. And the programmer for that club was a guy named Derek Andrews, who you must know, who is the head of the Maple Blues, or was.
Yeah.
And a great guy, real huge blues supporter. And he booked that club. So he was sometimes, when some of these guys came through town, Bo Diddley, Etta James, John Hammond Jr., Otis Rush, they would be traveling without a band. So he'd call me up to play guitar with. So I played with Etta for a week. I played with Otis Rush for a week. I played with Bo Diddley on a couple of little tours. Bo Diddley, I guess he was slightly bigger name at that time. And so he would play Alberts Hall one night, and then we'd go and play London, we'd play Hamilton, play, you know, Niagara or whatever. So that's how it came to work with those guys.
Right. Well, are there among all those memories, are there any that stand out?
Oh, it was amazing. Well, I mean, just to be able to stand next to Etta James and that voice. I mean, she had been kind of out of commission for a few years because I think she had a heroin problem, but then she got clean. And so she started touring around. And at that time she was just with pickup bands. And of course, the next time I think she came around, her reputation was back so high that she just was able to bring her own band. But yeah, to stand next to her singing, you know, At Last and Come to Mama and, you know, Tell Mama and all these classic songs. And her voice was just amazing. And she was quite heavy. So she'd go, all right, I'm going to do my encore now. And I'm going to do it right. She said, I'm not dragging my fat ass up those stairs and back down. So this is the encore.
Yeah.
And Otis Rush, he was a different guy. I mean, I am a huge Otis Rush fan, but I know the first night he gave me a solo in the first set, and, you know, not to sound braggy or anything, but the place, I got a great response, right? And then that was the last solo he gave me for the week. Yeah. But I still liked Otis anyway. I was still a big fan.
Yeah, that's interesting. So are there any you haven't sat in with you'd like to, living or dead?
I met B.B. King a number of times, but never got to... Never was on stage with him, but he was such a great guy and such a huge influence on me. I think, you know, rightfully the king of the blues, such a nice person and generous. And, you know, Eric Clapton, I mean, I think the British guys are the people that turned me on to the blues. You know, I know there seems to be some kind of backlash against that now for some reason, but I just feel like, you know, those British guys, they really brought the blues to the white audience, you know, and And so, yeah, Clapton and the Stones.
Yeah, I imagine it would be tough to narrow down just a few. There are so many, and there are so many out there still. So, how would you describe your music? Because you're closely associated to the blues, but you can do everything from Robert Johnson to Hendrix to jazz. So, how do you look at your music?
Everything from Robert Johnson to Jimi Hendrix to jazz. I like that.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, I love the blues, and it's the main thing that runs through my music, I would say, and it's the main thing that runs through all the music that I like. If it's rock music, if it's the Rolling Stones, I like it because they got the blues in there, and if it's the jazz and it's Kenny Burrell or all those great guitar players, if they're bluesy, then I love it. So the blues for sure. And then, of course, rock music, because I grew up, like I said, like so many of us listening to, Hendrix and Cream and Led Zeppelin. And those are the guys that I'd hear their songs and go, wow, that's a great song. Oh, that's by Chester Burnett. Who's that? Oh, that's Howlin' Wolf. And so then I discovered Willie Dixon and Muddy Waters and Robert Johnson through all those people. So rock is big in there. And then I guess, I've always been interested in jazz. And, but there's a lot of similar, there's a lot of connection between blues and jazz. I mean, I think the basic kind of form of a lot of jazz is blues. So I think that I just wanted to kind of get better at my instrument and improve my technique. Yeah, so I'd say blues, rock, jazz, and also R&B, because when I grew up on the radio, you had Wilson Pickett and Sam and Dave were huge. Motown was huge, Otis Redding, and they're all very blues based too. So, I mean, I grew up listening to the Beatles and the Stones, the English Invasion. And then I heard all the great Motown and all the soul people. And then as I got more into music, I discovered the blues, because the blues was something you didn't really hear on popular radio that much.
So we're talking about your versatility and all the genres you play. And so how do you build a show without driving yourself crazy trying to throw everything into that show? How does it designed?
Well, I think I go by tempo, especially for a theater show. I go by tempos and keys, obviously. And then every once in a while I'll throw in a song that's more well known to keep people engaged, because I realize not everybody knows all my songs. So that's pretty well how we do it. We start off with a nice fast one, and then go into a medium one, and then another medium one, and then do a slow one, and then, and the blues always gets everybody going.
But how are you tempted not to, try a little bit of everything? I mean, you've got such a big repertoire now. You have to pare it down for a show.
Oh, for sure. I know. I think sometimes, yeah, the worst problem is I play too long sometimes. I think, I just want to keep playing. But yeah, it's we do have a large repertoire. I'm sure we have over 100 songs we can choose from now.
So the band, who's going to be with you?
I have Rick Donaldson on drums, who's been with me for a good 20 years. And Rick's other claim to fame, and he's been getting a lot of press lately, was that he was the Blue Jays official kind of drummer that used to do cheers and chants out front with his drum set for 32 years.
Really?
And so he's quitting on a high note, obviously. And Richard Thornton has been with me the longest on saxophone. He's been with me about 25 years. On bass, we have Nick Succi, and Nick's been with me, I'm going to say 3 years, maybe 4, going on 4. And the other cool thing about Nick was that he grew up in Hamilton, and we jammed together when we were like 14 years old at a little coffee house in Hamilton way back in 1969. And Nick's son, Nick Jr., played keyboards with me for 3 years too. So Nick's a great bass player. And on keyboards, we have a new guy named Sam Heineman, and his claim to fame is that he comes from a very musical family. His father was a well-known jazz sax player in Toronto, and his mom sang backup vocals on the Tommy Hunter show. So there, it's quite a stretch, country to jazz, but he's a really good player. So that's the band.
So you got a lot of experience there, and obviously they can. You mentioned 100 songs, so that's a big repertoire for them to know too. And how How many people do you think actually think about the fact that all the practice, all the work, all the writing, travel, studio time that goes into a show, when they're buying a ticket for that show, do you think they think about all that?
Some people do, I think, but yeah. And then there's other people just take it at face value, and we just, make it a fun show. We always get the audience involved, and get them clapping and singing along, and engage the crowd. I'm like old school entertainment. I mean, the people I liked were we're entertainers as well as musicians. It drives me crazy just to see people up there that are just like, like staring at their shoes, and they, if they're playing great, fine. But, it's just like, you got to engage the crowd and make them feel like you're really happy to be there. And I am too.
Yeah. Well, it does make a difference, but you're right. I mean, and not everyone's like that. I mean, you know me, I've been shooting photos for a long time, and nobody worse than Derek Trucks to shoot. Great player, but he never changes his expression.
Right. Yeah.
I guess if you're there to listen, it's fine. But that brings me to another thing. I saw a little kind of mini documentary, Dan Rather interviewing Jack White, and he mentioned dressing up and putting on a uniform, he called it, whether
Right.
it's a suit or an Elvis jacket or whatever, as long as it's your uniform. And you always do that. Is that something that you've always thought about and maintained?
Pretty well, yeah. Old school again. I always felt like you should dress up a little bit and, wear something kind of flashy, or, just, I always considered it kind of like a show of respect for your audience that, you wanted. I remember hearing there was a jazz guy in Toronto. What was his name? I think it was Peter Appleyard, somebody like that. Anyway, he said his advice was always dress a little bit better than your crowd. So if you're playing at a biker festival, bike bash, you're not going to show up in a tuxedo, but maybe wearing a nicer pair of jeans and a nicer shirt.
Yeah.
And and if you're playing a theater, my guys, they all try to wear something nice.
Yeah. And White mentioned that too. He said nowadays, if you haven't got your pajamas on, you're dressed up because the bar's low.
Yeah, the grunge thing, right? It started after, I think, Nirvana, and all those bands kind of made it cool to just wear whatever the heck you wanted to wear. But I've never been a big fan of that. Yeah, look at the Rolling Stones. I mean, they're the biggest rock and roll band in the world, and have been for like 60 years. And, they're always really dressed flashy.
Yeah. Well, and it is noticeable. I mean, we notice not that there's not a scorecard or anything, but some people, and I can name you, and actually David Gogo, Sonny Mormon. These guys come, do a sound check in their jeans and t-shirt, then they change and go back on. And it's noticeable.
Yeah, good.
So a while back, you did a little History of the Blues acoustic show for us. Is
Right.
that something you like doing?
I do. Yeah, I've done. I don't do it a lot, Bob, but I have done quite a few. And that one was one where it was called The Evolution of Blues Guitar from Robert Johnson to Jimi Hendrix. And I just kind of trace the development, or how each guy kind of influenced the next generation and the next generation, and how the blues went, from acoustic to electric, and and how it went from, and eventually ended up with Hendrix with all the pedals, and it got a lot more electronic sounding. And yeah, so that was one thing I did. And then I've done a couple of other ones that were like just based on, one was called Britain's Got the Blues. And that one I did all like famous British versions of blues songs. The Little Red Rooster by the Stones, and Baby Please Don't Go by Van Morrison and Them, whatever they were called Them, I think. Obviously Cream, and the songs, The Spoonful and Zeppelin. And so that was a fun show too.
Well, I know people enjoyed it. And again, that's the kind of show that people will sit and listen to, obviously, and are interested in the history, as well as the music.
Exactly.
Now, you've got, 13 albums out?
I think I do. Yeah, I put out an album called Solo that I recorded during COVID. And it was just kind of a fun project that I did. Obviously, like most of us, were bored and just forced to stay home for a couple of years. So I was like, I would just look on the internet and see whose birthday it was that day. And if it was somebody that I really liked, I would do a cover of one of their tunes. And most of the time it was blues. And most of the time it was, a lot of the time it was actually even Delta blues or Mississippi blues, whatever you want to call it, country blues. So I put out that album solo and people enjoyed that. And I've got an album in the can right now that is quite different. I had a fan, a guy named Arnie Tenser, who was a manager of the rock band The Romantics in the 80s and 90s. And people probably know The Romantics from that song, That's What I Like About You. And also Talking in Your Sleep was another big hit by those guys. Mm-hmm. So he used to contact me sometimes back then and ask me for tunes and was interested, but he was too busy. So he got together with me during COVID and said, look, I still really want to do something with you and get something going. If we can get something going in the United States, it would be great. So he hooked me up with a great bass player named Peter Bankert and a drummer named Ralph Serafino. Anyway, and so I went to Detroit in the fall of last year and in the spring of this year, and we recorded 10 tracks, and it's more rock, very much rock blues. And so, yeah, we're just waiting to see what's going to happen with that.
Well, make sure you send a copy down to Blues Rock Revue.
For sure, yeah.
I've been writing for them for about a year now, and they do a really good job of, it's out of Kansas, but he does a really good job of covering Canadian guys.
I've seen that.
In fact, you just had a little interview with Spencer in there, so Spencer McKenzie. So.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. But what about the best of Jack de Keyzer Volume 2? I see.
Yeah, well, well, the way I do it usually, Bob, is it seems to take me 4 or 5 years to come up with like enough great songs, what I think are great songs, to record an album. So, and I think that's too much of a wait in between for people. So I'll either put in a live album in between, or in this case, I put out this solo album. And so then this album will come out, which I think the working title right now is Working Stiff. And so probably after that's out and rolling along for a while, probably would put a best of Volume 2 out.
You just said it took 4 or 5 years. So what does the writing process look like for you? How do you do it?
Well, I always tell people my quality is quantity. So basically, if I've got 10 songs, I probably wrote 40 or 50, and some of them might have been just, a few lines. Some of them might have been a whole song that got rejected, and some of them might be half a song. But anyway, yes, it just seems to take me that long to really come up with 10, 12 songs that I think are good enough to play live and to record, because I love to be able to play the songs live in front of an audience, and and if it's not a well-constructed song, it's not going to end up in the set. So
you don't lock yourself in a room until you write a whole bunch. You do it on the road, snippets here and there.
Mostly I do it at home, and it's usually, and I find I have to have a bit of time off. Like if I've got, a couple weeks off, then I every day I try to write something. And I'm in the studio every day trying to write something. But it seems when I have a bit of time off, then my brain can finally process things, and I'm in the right headspace. And I remember reading Keith Richards saying it's almost like an antenna goes up and the songs come to you. And I find that's an accurate assessment in a way.
Are there any concepts you haven't tried yet that you maybe like to?
What do you mean, like methods of trying to write, or styles?
No, just the album itself. A different genre, or a different idea, or a theme, or.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of my albums are quite different. Like this one is all the early mixes I've played for people, they're quite surprised at how much more rock it is. So there's that. And the last album was a little bit more rock blues tribute. And the album before that was all Chess Records classic covers. So that was a real blues album. And Electric Love before that was kind of rock blues. And then the one before that was called we had the Corktown Sessions, which was a live album, but won a Juno, and that was pretty jazzy actually. When I listen to it now, it's quite got a lot of jazz influences. So I'm always trying to incorporate the different styles of music that I love. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, is that when the mood strikes you, or is it by design?
I think it's a lot of it. I think probably is affected by what I'm listening to, and I think around the time of the Corktown sessions, I was listening to a lot of John Scofield and you know and more jazz guitar players, Kenny Burrell, Wes Montgomery, and trying to play the blues in that style. And you know, the last few years, I've been listening to a lot of more Hendrix and Cream and Clapton and the Beatles, a lot of the Beatles actually. And yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting the influences in this field or the people that I've talked to. I mean, Matt Schofield mentioned listening to John Schofield, and there certainly are a lot of connections. But someone like you, you've done so much already and you've had so many connections already. You must just have to sit down and go with what moves you at the moment.
Oh, for sure. And it's like I said earlier, Bob, it's just like if it has blues running through it, I love it. I mean, country music, I love Hank Williams, and Hank Williams wrote some classic blues songs, Move It On Over, and, you know, Lonesome Lovesick Blues. And then you listen to bluegrass music. I mean, so much of that is blues based. Bill Monroe and his Bluegrass Boys. I was into country and bluegrass for a while when I was a teenager. And when I started my career in '85 as under Jack de Keyzer, I had quite a bit of interest from country radio and country TV. And, you know, my manager was really pushing me like, you got to go country, right? But I just couldn't really picture myself going full on country. So, which could have been a mistake because
Well,
country gets a lot more airplay than blues does, and
right.
there's a lot bigger audience. But anyway, it wasn't a mistake. But yeah. And the same thing as with the jazz and the rock, and if when there's blues running through it, I like this style of music. Like, you know, nothing against Yes, but you know, I just don't find there's enough blues in their music and that kind of progressive rock. So I appreciate it. That's great, but
Yeah.
it's got to have blues running through it for me to like it.
Yeah, well, I think that explains why you didn't go country or another genre specifically, because obviously there has to be that personal attraction to it that keeps you coming back. Because you mentioned the monetary success in pop or country is certainly greater. Staying true to yourself, I think, is important, and people get that. People tune into that.
I agree, 100%. Yeah.
Now, the recording business itself, the record companies, the record recording process has all changed drastically over the last few years. How do you keep up with it?
I got to be honest, I haven't done a great job at that. I mean, I don't really understand the streaming thing. I get that it's like very convenient, but I don't get like how cheap it is, and I don't get like how they're paying out 0.0006 cents per stream, so that if I got 1 million streams, which would be, you think, quite impressive, it would pay you $6,000. So, I mean, it's the numbers just don't really add up. Fortunately, our crowd still does buy CDs. And so I'm still selling CDs. And I'm also trying to find, people also say that they're those thumb drive kind of things, or memory sticks, or whatever you call them, that some artists are selling those with their music on it, but I haven't done that yet. So, and then vinyl, people say there's a big vinyl resurgence. And I mean, once they figure out how to fit an LP into the CD player in my car, I'll probably switch to that.
Well, at least you got a CD player. I don't even have one of those anymore.
But that's the other thing, right? I mean, it almost seemed like it was like a concerted effort to like destroy the indie artist or something, because yeah, like you said, there's no more CD players in cars. And that was my absolute favorite place to listen to music, was driving to gigs. And I had like thousands of CDs.
Right.
And luckily or unluckily enough, I still have a car that has a CD player in it. So
yeah, I got a brand new one on a table over there that never got installed. But it is weird that they disappeared, because people are using it. And you mentioned vinyl, and actually Jack White mentioned that that's the only growth format right now. So that's interesting because, yeah, I mean, if you think about it, how do CDs disappear and vinyl make a resurgence? Somebody's doing something somewhere.
It's odd. Yeah. I mean, to me, when CDs came out, I just thought, wow, like it's incredible. They were like, you could listen to them in your car. You can listen to LPs in your car. If you had a Rolls Royce, you could, because
Yeah.
they'd put in a very expensive record player, but you couldn't certainly play that while you were driving around. So that was a bit of just a status symbol.
Yeah. But
So,
yeah.
so it was a beautiful thing to have these things that were so portable and, apparently didn't skip, although they do skip sometimes a little bit, and that they were fairly indestructible. And they also came with a nice little art package. And, and the thing that drives me nuts now is like you go on Spotify and all these places, they have a picture of your album cover, but there's like no picture of the back cover. There's no details about the production, where it was recorded, the people that played on it. I mean, it's supposed to be the age of information, and you think like, yeah, printing words on a computer screen takes up 0 bytes practically. You could write like 10,000 words up there, and it would be like 6 kilobytes of information. Yet they don't do it. It's just all you don't get much. It just seems like the artist has been really disrespected by the music industry.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, it's a little bit of a problem for me too, because like I mentioned, I'm writing for Blues Rock Review, and some of them are great. They send me everything I can think of, but some just send the album. And I always want to know who wrote every track, who played on every track, who produced it. Like,
Right.
I want to know all that. And it's sometimes very hard to find. And like you said, why? It's easy to send it out. Why don't you send it out?
Exactly. Yeah.
Especially when you're
Yeah.
sharing credit with, co-writers or musicians. It is tough. So,
Yeah, we're the same era, right? I mean, you'd buy an LP, and I mean, I used to just love reading all the liner notes and who produced it and who engineered it and all this stuff. It was great.
yeah, yeah. And like I say, it's important when you're trying to describe it to somebody else. It's a work of art that had collaborators, and I think everyone should be noted. Now, you've gotten some great accolades over the years. I mean, the Bob Dylan saying that you would be famous if you were American. Have you ever thought
Right.
about moving to the States?
No, I was like, well, actually, I did it. I auditioned for a rockabilly singer named Robert Gordon in let me think, probably about 78. And I drove down up to New York with my last $100 and went in a room with this guy and got the gig. And so then I was playing in New York with him, but it didn't last long. It was only about 3 months. He put out an album called Bad Boy, which had Chris Spedding on it, and it went direct to delete. So remember when they used to cut the corner out of the record, or they'd punch a hole in the corner of it so that record stores couldn't sell it for full price anymore. So the tour was scuttled. But yeah, that was the one time I thought, wow, I've got a foot in the door to in New York City. But I was in good company. It was like Link Ray was his original guitar player. Then Chris Spedding quit. Then I got the job, and then Danny Gatton took over for the next record. So,
wow.
But yeah, that was pretty well the only time I thought that I could get something going in the U.S. And then after that, I just came back up to Canada, and yeah, I mean, I love Canada, and I had a family. I have 5 kids, and so I was never big on going away for months at a time. And I was just fortunate to be able to just work reasonably close to home. And Ontario's and Quebec are big provinces. There's dozens of big cities, and then I would fly out west to a couple times a year and do a week or 2 out there, and that's suited me just fine. I've really no interest to fly to Europe and hop in a rented van and play a bunch of grungy clubs for like a month and then come home with no money. And then tell everybody
that's the spirit.
tell everybody that I was in Germany and that I was here and there, but I didn't see any of it. All I saw was the inside of a van and some grotty nightclub.
Yeah. So how do you budget your time traveling and writing and staying home? Do you make sure you've got it spaced out? Do you just take the gigs as they come?
No, it's pretty planned out, and I'll try to book as much as I want, and then any other stuff that comes in is just kind of bonus. And it was like before the pandemic, I probably was doing close to 100 gigs a year. And then after the pandemic, it kind of slowed down to about 40 for a year or so. And then now it's up to about 60 or 70 a year. And for me, that's fine right now. If more came along, great. But that's about good for me.
Now, I see in the Roselawn promo, you've got a Telecaster in the picture. And I remember the last time you did Blues in the Battlefield, you had a big Flying V. Do you have favorites? Do you like to try them all?
Yeah, I do a little bit. And most of those are for recording so I can get some different sounds. But the Stratocaster is still my favorite. The first few years of probably the first 5 years of my career, I played an ES 335. And then I joined Ronnie Hawkins' band, and he said, "Oh, Robbie Robertson played a Telecaster. You got to play a Telecaster." So then I got into the Telecaster, and I actually played that for probably for a good 20 years. And then I gradually just started morphing into Strats, and I realized, so many of my favorite guitar players play Stratocasters. Hendrix, obviously, Clapton, Jimmy Vaughn, Buddy Guy. So yeah, the Strat's been kind of my main guitar for the last 25 years.
And now, what do people expect to see at this Roselawn show? What's that show going to look like, set list and all that?
At the Roselawn, our set for the last few years has been a combination of quite a few songs from Tribute, which I was very happy with that album, that the songs really translated well to a live audience, and I think they're quite catchy. So we do that. And then we do quite a few songs from Electric Love, and also Checkmate, which had all the classic chess records on it. That was really fun to record. So yeah, that would be the main parts of it. And yeah, I don't generally tend to put in too many new songs that haven't been recorded. I like them to be recorded and for sale before I perform them. Because I think when I was younger, I used to do that. And then sometimes I would get sick of the song before I was starting to record it. Or if I played it on a night and it didn't seem to go over, I would just drop it. So now I just feel like, no, I don't want to. I just want to just play songs that are available.
Yeah. And this type of show gives you a lot of control and I guess comfort in knowing exactly what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. But yeah, I saw another interview where you mentioned you like the spontaneity, the jamming, and we certainly got a lot of pictures of you, with Little Ed and Joe Louis Walker, and also the kids, like Spencer McKenzie and Riley Michaels, at the Shuffle. So that's a different event. And do you still enjoy jamming with all those guys?
Oh yeah, especially when you're at a festival and there's a jam thing or a workshop. It's great to connect, and that's pretty well the only time I do. Right, is when I see Spencer. We're playing at a gig together, or we're on the same festival, and we get there a day early. And yeah, so many of my friends in the Canadian music business, Steve Mariner and Steve Strongman and Don Tyler Watson, and there's so many, but yeah, we'll get together, and that's when we get to jam and hang out and see what's going on.
And you've been very supportive. I mentioned Spencer and Riley. You were very kind and supportive of those young guys when you were here, and I'm sure they appreciate it too.
Yeah, well, I mean, because blues has been my my rock for it's been the thing that I built my career on for so many years. I'm just so happy to see when younger people are playing that music, because it is a real kind of roots kind of music, and and if it wasn't for guys like you playing it and promoting it, it doesn't get much mainstream attention at all. So
yeah, it's always a battle. To get people to understand that it's not one kind, there's all kinds, and that's another theme that's come up, in these interviews over time. Everyone seems to have a notion of what blues is, and usually it's wrong.
Yeah, it's true. One of my favorite quotes on that was B.B. King. He said, "I'm just trying to make people who don't like the blues, or don't know the blues, like the blues." Yeah. or
Yeah.
think they don't like the blues. You know,
Right.
they just, it's the blues. They're just something, oh, is it like slow, draggy kind of, you know, it's like depressing music. It's just like, no,
Yeah.
it's the complete opposite.
Yeah. It's a battle. I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we will let you go, Jack, and I certainly appreciate the time you spent here today. And
Oh,
like,
thank you.
and we will look forward to November 14th in Port Colborne, Ontario, and you can go to your website to find information on that.
Fantastic.
Is there anywhere else they should be looking? I know the Roselawn is hosting, but they're not the presenters.
So, yeah, you can get tickets at the Roselawn. You can find tickets at my website, jackdekeyzer.com. And yeah, we got lots of other good shows coming up. We're going to be in Hamilton on New Year's Eve, which is about the 7th year I've done that, including the 2-year holiday we took there. And also Brantford, I have a New Year's Day show that it's actually been going for 35 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it started in a little tiny club in Brantford and on New Year's Day, and it was so popular that now it's continued along for all these years.
Wow.
Now it's in a big 400-seat hall.
Right. All right. Well, all the best to you, and again, thank you. We'll see you in November, and probably again after that, I'm sure.
Great to see you, Bob. Have a good one.
You too. Take care.
Cheers.